I think it's quite disingenuous to kind of point the finger at the Chinese and to say that everyone's in the same boat and the UK is just, having to muddle along like everyone else, because we've got quite a distinctly different response here to what we've seen in other countries. And it's not just, if you look at the Asian countries like South Korea, like China, like Hong Kong, like Singapore, they all managed to get out the blocks faster in terms of testing, which was critical. Now, okay, they've had these experiences before, they've had pandemic before, so we can understand why they might be ahead of us. But Germany, right here in Europe, is well ahead of us on testing. So it's not a problem that is shared universally across countries. I think a further point that's important to make here as well is that there is clear confusion in the UK about exactly what is the strategy to deliver testing, because we're actually getting a situation where some people are saying the limiting factor is the equipment, others are saying it's the labs, and then you actually then get reports from the ground, who are not coming from government, from hospitals saying, well, we've got capacity for 12,000 tests a day as it stands. We're only getting 8,000. And you've got labs saying, hey, we've got space to do testing. We can do it, capacity right here in the UK, and we're not being used. So that evidence of a lack of resource that can be mobilised for testing shows that there is a strategic problem here in the UK, and it's particular to our policy response.
And if you speak to people within the NHS or people who represent doctors and nurses, their argument is by not testing NHS staff, what it means is that right now you have about 1 in 4 doctors stuck at home when they might not actually have coronavirus. They might be stuck at home just, for example, because a member of their household had a bit of a sniffle.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, that's the real value in the short term of testing, is it allows the response to both the economic response and the health response to have much more precision response than the current one, which is just pure, isolation on the basis of very minor symptoms. Testing allows you to then differentiate, say, actually, no, you're okay, you can get back to work, the NHS needs you, get back into the workforce, but actually you've got a positive, therefore isolate for 14 days. And so testing is a huge difference in our capacity to respond. I mean, I think in fairness to the government, and I think, we will all, I think, over time point our fingers here and there about where decisions were made, where mistakes were made over time. And look, mistakes will be made, and no matter what political parties in government, they would have also made mistakes, and we'll see mistakes across the world being made. But I think a really key point that kind of lifts us above a kind of pointing finger and just gets the debate a little bit more mature, a bit more nuanced is, at the end of the day, there is no such thing as just following the evidence. There is no science that tells countries what is the perfect policy response. There is only evidence, lack of evidence, and then judgment on the basis of that. And I think part of the problem here is government doesn't want to concede changes in strategy or reacting in real time, because from the beginning it said we're listening to the science, and what the science tells us is to do X. That is a nonsense. The science does not tell you what to do. Science can only tell you what knowledge we have, and then judgment is where we intervene. And so I think there's a problem here around the debate in general. It's not a party political point, which is that we have to be ready for our governments to make judgments and to hold those to account, and not just be scared of critiquing the evidence and the science.
Well, this is what Ant B has to say, Alfie, and I think it's the point a lot of people are feeling. So I'll read this tweet out and then you can respond on the back. But he says, bottom line for me is, if the government is asking me to give up my personal freedom for weeks, I want to know they are doing everything they can to release me from this prison ASAP. I am not hearing it. No urgency to increase testing. And I agree with Ant. That's how I feel. We're prepared to do this for now, Alfie, as long as we know the government has a plan in place.
I mean, I never thought it'd be this way around, but I think if anything, I would almost I'd be kinder to government in the here and now and say, I do actually believe they're doing everything they can to ramp up testing. I think the problem is the point that, both you and Patrick have made, I think we're all in agreement on this, is we waited too long to put a plan in place. There was a delay where we tried a completely different strategy, which was not to isolate the whole population, it was to allow the virus to pass through 60 to 70% of us. And it was that delay that has brought us to where we are now. So right now, today, I do actually think, in good faith, government is doing everything it can to get testing out the door. Why wouldn't it? The problem is it's doing so in an unstructured, unstrategic, unplanned way. That's where the lack of speed's coming from. And the reason for that is because it started down this route too late.